Hey everyone, this is Nick, and this is your Linux, open source, and privacy news fix for the end of August 2021. This time we have Intel announcing gaming-grade GPUs, multiple new distro releases including Zorin OS 16 and Manjaro 21.1, and Github Copilot producing unsafe code. Let's dive in right after I tell you about today's sponsor. So Linode is a fantastic way to get your own Linux server up and running. It was rated the easiest cloud provider to use on G2, and it has been voted top infrastructure as a service provider by G2 and TrustRadius. Linode offers a ton of one-click deployable servers, like Owncast for example, which lets you run your own Twitch-like streaming service complete with video broadcast and chat, or Apache Guacamole. What's that, you ask? Well, Guacamole is a fantastic way to get your own Linux desktop in the cloud that you can access from anywhere you want. And basically you can host that on Linode and get to any other computer and get access to that Linux desktop. It's pretty amazing. If you're more into gaming, you can also deploy your own Valheim or Minecraft server in one click. Linode has a ton of these one-click deployable apps. I use Linode to run my own Nextcloud server, which I use to run this whole channel, so I can't recommend them enough, especially since you can now create your account easily using Google or GitHub. And in the future, if you don't have a credit card, you'll be able to sign up using Google Pay as well, so that's one less barrier to get started. So if you want to get a free $100 credit to start your own Linux server, well, head over to the link in the description below and click it. So let's begin with the Linux news. And Zorin OS 16 was released. It's an amazing distribution for Linux newcomers and more experienced users that want a desktop that works out of the box. It's based on GNOME 3.38 and implements multiple desktop layouts, one-to-one gestures, even on x.org thanks to TouchEgg, as well as a way to share your mouse and keyboard to other devices, or to cast your computer screen remotely to a TV or any Miracast-compatible device. I have a dedicated video on the channel, you can find it by clicking on the card up top. Manjaro 21.1, codename Pahvo, was released as well. It's the first version of Manjaro to use GNOME 40. And it also adds a Manjaro legacy layout that replicates the GNOME 3.38 layout that some users prefer to the new GNOME 41 with its horizontal workspaces. There is a new Firefox theme that will make the browser more consistent with the default look and feel of the distro, or provide another thing to change if you don't plan to keep the green default look. It also makes use of KDE Plasma 5.22 in its Plasma variant, as well as the Linux Kernel version 5.13, which brings FreeSync over HDMI and improved drivers and device support, including for M1 Macs. Linux celebrated its 30th birthday, and Linus Torvalds was interviewed for the occasion. He recalls the creation of Linux, a very simple Minix clone made as a personal project at the time, but also reflects on what has been important for Linux to occupy its dominant place in the server space, including commercial companies' involvement. While some people don't like anything remotely commercial associated to Linux, he thinks that without these companies, Linux couldn't have taken off the way it has. It's an interesting read, the link is in the description as always. The Linux Kernel version 5.14 was released, and it brings some new interesting stuff. It includes core scheduling support, which makes using multi-threading safer on Linux. There is a new input-output controller, and better journaling on ext4 file systems. There's also a new secret memory area that will harden the kernel against various exploits, and the Raspberry Pi 4 gets mainline support. You can also now hot swap AMD GPUs while the system is running, if that's ever useful. The Xbox One controller select or share button should also now work, and Dell added support for their upcoming kill switches for cameras and mics. There's also a low latency USB driver, and USB 4 and Intel Alder Lake CPUs have had more work put in to help support these new technologies. Now onto the open source news. The MAUI Framework and its associated apps have seen a new release, version 2. If you don't know about it, MAUI is an ensemble of libraries and components that are geared towards making applications that adapt to any form factor, desktop, tablet, or phone. They're used mainly in Plasma Mobile, but you can install them and use them on a desktop as well if you want. The apps are also cross-platform, working on Linux, Windows, macOS, Android, or iOS. This new release updates a lot of the various apps that include a file manager, Index, a music player, Wave, an image viewer, Pix, a text editor, Nota, an app for note-taking, Buho, a terminal emulator called Station, a document viewer called Shelf, or a video player called Clip. Mate 1.26 was released with a few nice improvements, including initial support for Wayland, notably for the document viewer called Atril, the system monitor, the notepad Pluma, and the terminal. The text editor also saw multiple improvements, like a minimap to give you a document overview, or redesign of its preference UI for the new features. This text editor also has access to plugins. The file manager can now format a drive from the context menu, and a lot of apps have received performance improvements and smaller updates. I mentioned it last time, but this time it's live. The GNOME Apps website has been launched. It's a simple web portal showcasing applications made to work within the GNOME desktop environment. It separates them between the core apps, the base apps that are part of GNOME, and the Circle apps, which are third-party apps using GNOME technologies and that integrate well with the desktop. It uses metadata that these apps already provide to FlatHub, so it's always up to date, and it allows users to get involved with these apps' development, or contribute financially, or just discover some new amazing apps that they didn't know existed. It's a cool initiative, you should check it out just in case you find something new and interesting. Now it looks like Github Copilot isn't really putting the open source code it parses to good use. Researchers wrote 89 test cases that made use of Copilot to generate 1,600 programs. They then reviewed the code Copilot had written and discovered that 40% of these programs were vulnerable in one way or another. There are still issues to clear about Copilot's respect of open source licenses and some other ethic considerations, but on top of that, the code it helps generate doesn't seem all that great. It's more a tool to help you automate a few boring loops, but it's far from a code-writing AI, at least quality-wise. Now let's talk about apps, and LibreOffice 7.2 was released, and it's a big one. Over 60% of the commits made to this new release are designed to help the Office suite be more compatible with other file formats, especially Microsoft Office Open XML formats like DocX. Big performance improvements have also been made, so the applications can handle big files more responsively. There's also a new command HUD, letting you press Shift plus Escape to open a search field where you can look for commands instead of trying to find them in the menu or in the tab view. There's also a new dark mode color scheme and 5 new presentation templates in Impress, among other changes. Claudio Cambra, which is working on a nice visual update to Calendar, the responsive app that serves as a calendar on Plasma Mobile but can also be used on the Plasma desktop as well, has shown a few screenshots of the new to-do view of the app, which might finally give KDE a good to-do list and task management program. It looks nice, it supports subtasks, it integrates with the online accounts, and can have nested to-dos completion status, as well as showing your previously completed to-dos. It's a good first step to have a good KDE program for that sort of thing, and maybe replace Planner by something made for KDE, at least on my use case. Now in terms of hardware, there's only one point, but it's an important one. Intel announced their future line of consumer, gaming-grade GPUs, all grouped under the name Arc, including the software that will power these. While Intel had already made inroads in the GPU market with the Xe graphics, these are made for ultrabooks, and they lack the horsepower for serious gaming. It seems like Intel wants its piece of the GPU market as well, because this new architecture can run a lot of AAA titles. They demoed PUBG, Forza Horizon 4, Metro Exodus, or the Crysis trilogy. Intel is also promising their own spin on AI-powered supersampling technology like NVIDIA's DLSS or AMD's Fidelity FX. We have yet to see where these GPUs will be sold, how much they will cost, or their performance compared to more established actors. And we don't know yet what the Linux support will be, but I'm pretty excited to see more competition in this space. Now in terms of gaming, Proton 6.3-6 was released with updates to Mono, DXVK, VKD3D, and F-Audio. It also improves cloud-safe syncing for a few titles like Death Stranding or Scarlet Nexus. Video playback has also been improved for Deep Rock Galactic, The Medium, or Nier Replicant. A bunch of games are now also playable without any additional fixes, including Sonic Adventure 2, Elite Dangerous, Homeworld Remastered Collection, or Star Wars Knight of the Old Republic. It also brings improved cursor capture for full-screen games, including for Far Cry Primal and Warhammer Chaosbane, and many audio playback fixes for Borderlands 3, Deep Rock Galactic, Oblivion, or Fallout New Vegas. We also saw the release of Wine 6.16. It fixes 36 issues, including for Hitman, Temtem, Star Citizen, EverQuest, and more games. It also brings the initial version of a HID-based joystick backend, as well as improved theming support on high DPI displays and more work on the GDI syscall interface. As always, Wine 6.16 will probably be picked up in the next version of Proton, so we should see these improvements pretty soon. And finally, let's conclude with a little point about privacy, or maybe more monopoly abuse. Windows 11 seems intent on making users lose their minds, as they will make switching their default browsers even harder. If you forget to tick the box named "Always use this app to open web pages" when Windows prompts you to choose the web browser you want to use, then you'll have to manually change the app you want to use for all the file types: HTML, HTML, PDF, SHTML, SVG, WebP, XHT, XHTML, FTP, HTTP, and HTTPS. This is an extremely unfriendly way to make users select their default browser, and a very anti-competitive move, made to bolster Edge's market share. All main competitors, including Firefox, Opera, and Google, have criticized this move, and with good reason. And that's it for the news for the end of August. So this video was made possible by Slimbook. If you don't know about them, they're based in Valencia, Spain, and they make Linux laptops, Linux desktops, Linux all-in-ones, all keyboard configurations, all prices, all power levels, everything that you need basically you can find there. They pre-install only with Linux, and they ship worldwide. I only use their stuff these days, so if you need a new Linux laptop or desktop, take a look at the description below, click on the link, and you'll find that they have something for you. So thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And if you didn't enjoy it, you can also dislike and tell me why in the comments. If you want to help me keep doing what I do, you can also join my amazing Patreon subscribers and my YouTube members. You'll get access to a weekly Patreon cast and the right to vote on the next topics I cover. And if you don't like YouTube, I'm also on Odyssey. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!